So in one of the first videos, the spirits want to talk about the child, and the inner child is a very real, almost ball of energy in our energy self, if you like, in our energy body. Now, the child is actually composed in all of us of both a masculine and a feminine part of the child. And we quite often come into the world, with our, perhaps let's say a difficult childhood. Let's say we had a difficult childhood, an unhappy childhood. And it's very much one of the things that's being done upon us, if you like, and particularly colluded to with the dark spirits, is the split of the male and the female child. This is so important, because if the male part can't get on with the female part, you've got this separation and this split and this non-communication between the two sides of the child. The male very much about it's very much about the logical, the outside, the strength, almost the domineering side, the logic, the planning, all of that aspect. And the feminine part is much more about creativity, spirituality, the water side. The male is the air side, the spiritual side, the more feeling side, and the internalizing of things. Now, these are aspects. We're not just born with an inner child, we're born with a male and female child. And in particular, the darker spirits really do like to cause a wedge between the male and the female child. And this is what so much of our societies end up causing, a wedge between actual males and females. But the actual truth is that the battle is an internal one. And we're kind of brought up with this splitting that goes on between the male. The male can't accept the female can't accept the male. They don't like the way that they deal with things differently. The male deals internally with things differently to how one human being's male will deal differently to that same human being's female. And so they may find that they've split off from their female. But of course, they lose. The female is capable of absorbing pain, but also does the pleasure as well. So the female may have absorbed. Quite often, it's quite standard for the female to have split off from the male. And the female contains all of the pain because she's capable of internalizing. But of course, it means that the male is then remains separate from his pleasure source as well, because pain and pleasure are part on the same spectrum. Pleasure, pain, pleasure, pain. They're on the same spectrum. So if he can't get access to the pain, if there's pain there, the split will happen because of the pain, and she'll be internalizing it and maybe hiding from it, hiding parts. He won't have access to the pleasure either, which kind of leaves him bereft, And equally on the female side, perhaps the females, as an example, had an abusive parent. It doesn't have to be a male or female abusive parent. The split will be the male and female split. It doesn't have to be like a male parent that causes the male to split from the female. It's the internal parts that split. The male, the one that could do the strength. If the female has had a lot of abuse and has been terrorized, for example, because she's female, she may live in that female side, remain more, and may have completely lost her strength side and her logic side, but and so she may have lost and almost subdivided from her own male part of her child. There may be aspects within her male part that were similar to the abuser, maybe even. maybe a domineering, maybe her own male part is quite domineering. But there will be reasons why. There will be multiple reasons, or maybe simple reasons, but valid reasons for that person as to why the male is splitting from the female child. And this is so important because law of attraction can only give us the relationships that we have internally. So if I've split from if I'm a male or a female and I've split from my female part, I will only be able to have a relationship in that same sort of split. So there'll be this, if the gap is sort of 10%, I will have a 10% split with a female that I could have a relationship with. If a gap is 500%, so let's say it's then any abusive, I will only be able to replicate the same relationship I have with my own internal boy and girl. So law of attraction will only be able to deliver me that same relationship of my child that I have with my male and female parts. So the extent to which they're separated will be reflected in my relationships and in the world, generally speaking, with my men and women relationships. You know, if I choose to more fully exist in my female side, I may be a man or a woman, I may choose to exist more fully in my female side and have rejected my male side. Now those parts will be stashed away somewhere. Generally speaking, the male part will be stashed away. It's very much like the soul works very much like an external hard drive. You know, when we kind of, I put it somewhere, I don't know where I left it. I know I would have put it somewhere logical. I would have put it somewhere for safekeeping, somewhere safe. Where did I put that external hard drive? That's how deeply the soul can hide stuff from us. If it's very painful, it can be a real damn nightmare to try and find stuff. And it can be a nightmare to try and find a whole part of our energy that we've split from. You know, if we're the feminine, if we're in our female side and we've lost lots of our strength sides, the female will often put it in things she's very frightened of. Or the feminine side will put the male part in things they're frightened of, because that's the spectrum working. That's the balance working. She's in fear, she can't get to strength. There are extreme points, so she'll probably have to hide that energy source, the male, in places, maybe in heights, maybe she's frightened of heights. The difficult news is, you know, in order to reclaim that strength, she has got to face those fears, to reclaim by degrees. If she's got a male that's really strong, if she's doing fear and terror, she can't be reunited with that strong male, can she? There'll have to be a massive divide. He'll have to be over there. So to get him back and for her to be less frightened, this has got to happen. She's got to come up, they've got to come back together somehow. So her fear will have to lessen, she'll have to face her fears, and the strength will naturally start coming back at the same time. It's complex to explain that one, but the female, if the female is living in fear and terror, it's very likely that she can't be reunited with strength, can she? Because they're opposing things. So energy-wise, in terms of us being energy bodies, that has to be stashed somewhere, and that's why they're talking about an external hard drive, because the soul is so smart, so incredibly adept at hiding. And what is the benefit from hiding? We don't feel the pain of something when it's a long way away. You know, we can't find the hard drive, we don't think about it. We get on with stuff, we'll do without it. But of course, what we're doing without is a huge part of ourselves, a huge part of our energy that we want to retrieve. You know, we've lost some of our energy. So if we can sort out those wounds of those fears, we can come back together. So really the self-love path is so crucially about bringing back our male. They should be really in close contact with each other, chatting to each other. That's how it should be. Holding on to each other. That's how it should be. And our correct mother, in a sense, if we put in place the correct mother for our internally, a loving sort of mother, one that is kind and caring to ourselves and our actual energy, these parts will begin to come back together where they should be and be reunited. And that's when we just naturally have more energy, because these parts are our energy. So if our relationships with a female, are right over there, we are choosing to keep our internal feminine right over there. Maybe we've been brought up in a household where there was an excess of addiction, and an excess, a lot of emotion. Don't want to put a judgment label on something, but if there've been a lot of emotions that we couldn't really deal with, that gave us fear or unhappiness, or we hated it or whatever, we were uncomfortable, we may choose to expel our own internal female. But that internal female isn't the cause of our pain. It's the rejection of the parts that causes the pain. We need to bring them back together. And then law of attraction can replicate that coming together as well. We can have good relationships with men, with women, without that rift. If we've got a rift, law of attraction will give us a rift between men and women. And of course, we've got these things replaying in our society to a greater or lesser extent, here, there and everywhere in different countries. But coming initially from the internal rift between the inner child has both a male and the female part. And the important thing is for them to come together, not be split apart. But it's like the brain helps us cope. We're better, it'll tell us, we cope better when that part is split off from ourselves. But we lose that energy. Are we really prepared to sacrifice that and lose that energy? This person, this female child that we may be hating, detesting, or reverse, the male part that we're hating or fearing or detesting, do we really want to be split off from that part of our own energy? It belongs to us. It belongs to us, It is our, it belongs to our energy. The male and the female is exactly as it should be. We are causing the rift, the split. We need to start loving the internal female, loving the internal male for who they are and what they are, and the female the same for who she is, for what she is, her nature, her energy nature. So these splits are just reflected back to us.